for joining me for the Plant Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Howie Jacobson. So that secondhand fake fleece full zipper jacket that I picked up like 15 years ago for $5 at the PTA thrift store, that's me being ethical and ecologically responsible, right? Because it's used, so I didn't buy a new thing and add to the demand. It's synthetic, so no animals were harmed in its manufacture, and it was cheap, so I didn't need to go out and exploit the proletariat to earn gobs of money to afford it. Well, there's still a not-so-teeny problem with that jacket, and it's one that today's guest explains with great clarity, urgency, inspiration, and love. Jeff Scult is the founder and CEO of One Golden Thread. It's a regenerative clothing company. It's seeking to improve the fashion industry, contribute to restoring planetary health and harmony, and inspiring the people who wear and behold its garb to remember that we are precious, worthy, and wonderful beings. And I've got to say, I came to this conversation with a large dollop of cynicism, skepticism bordering on cynicism about, capitalism trying to solve the problems created by capitalism. And I've got to say, Jeff really won me over with the global nature of what he's trying to do, with acknowledgments of where the industry is now, where people are now, and kind of helping to move us into a different, better direction, one where consumption isn't the driving force, but more like stewardship, ownership, appreciation. So their clothes are expensive, no question about it, but they're meant to last a long time, and they're also meant to be the only clothes you have, instead of, me opening my closet and seeing, literally 350 different pieces of clothing. Maybe just have 5 or 6 or 10 or 11 that can serve as, an expression of me, a way to keep my body safe and protected from the elements, and with materials that are going to return to the earth naturally and harmlessly at the end of their cycle. So that's what we talk about. I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation. So without further ado, Jeff Scult, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. Honor to sit with you. So
let's jump right in. Tell us about yourself and what you do.
So I'm an evolving entrepreneur, and now really for the first time in my life, after spending a life of amplifying other people's visions and missions, and this is the first time I'm the creator of my own, and it came from a very heart centric place. And I'm the designer and founder of One Golden Thread, which is a regenerative nature fashion brand, where frankly the clothes is beautiful and delicious and ethical, and as they are, it's an alibi for so much something deeper inside, which is the reminder message that we all can be share with each other, which is we're all golden inside, and the greatest lie is the illusion of separation. We're all connected to nature.
So there's a lot to unpack in that. So One Golden Thread is a regenerative fashion brand.
It's a regenerative nature fashion brand. And what I mean by that is that the clothes innovate with nature. We're using very high-end luxury elements that ultimately will biodegrade back to earth. So we're innovating with nature using regenerative tree fiber. And then the message is all about connecting to your inner nature to stay connected to that. And then we have a business model around regeneration, where every item sold plants a tree. So at scale, we can be one of those important voices about giving back more than it takes to make, which is where I think we were all going, and following the lead of regenerative agriculture, regenerative food systems, that regenerative fashion, which has long plagued the earth and has frankly gotten the hall pass of the century of being among the most polluting industries that very few people know about. Fast fashion needs to be exposed, and we can come into the coherence that there's a better way.
So, yeah, I'm curious, because when I think of fashion, when I first got to know of your work. So there's a little part of my mind that's just totally cynical about everyone and everything. And I try to keep it on a leash. It serves its purpose. And my first thought was like fashion and regenerative are oxymorons, because fashion is always about the new. And Gandhi wasn't into fashion. He was just wearing his, dhoti the whole time. I guess let's start with what's wrong with fashion, and then we'll see whether one golden thread actually fixes it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think that we're not here to fix anything. We're not here to be the savior. We're simply here to maybe educate a little bit and give people a very comfortable way to come back into coherence about what does it feel like to be embodied in your body as you wear clothes on your body, as opposed to being separated from nature. But let's first unpack what's wrong with fashion, and we can do it based upon 4 numbers. And those 4 numbers are 187, 38, and 3. There's 100 billion new pieces of clothes made every year. 87% of those will wind up in an incinerator or landfill within 18 months, because we're taught that our clothes are disposable. Of those 87% of the 100 billion, where the number was 3%, it might be closer to 10 because the arc is improving. But let's use 3. 3% of those are made with sustainable fibers. And what I mean by sustainable fibers is things that actually are natural, things that will actually biodegrade back to Earth instead of polluting our Earth or toxifying our oceans. And that gets to the last number, 38. 38% of the microplastics in the ocean come from the clothes that we not only toss, but remarkably and sadly also wash. What I mean by that is that there's 60,000 particles of microplastics that when you have something that's synthetic, that you say, well, I buy it at a thrift store and sure it's plastic and it's got plastic in it, and you wash it, it's going into the waterways. It's leaching into the soil. And then it's ultimately polluting the ocean. Now, it's a microplastic. You don't see it, or you can barely see it, but it shows up as fish, as plankton. So the fish are eating that. That's why that there are studies that now show that humans are ingesting an average of a credit card a week. If you're drinking water or if you're eating fish, a credit card a week of plastic. Now, just to, we'll move past this and get to solutionists, because that's more interesting than talking about the problem, because we know it's a big problem. But the last thing that's important to know is that these microplastics are turning into nanoplastics. Now, what are nanoplastics? Well, nanoplastics break down even smaller, and it rises as condensation. And that's why there are studies that show, this is the first study came out 2 years ago, that show that it is actually raining plastic. Now, the biggest things that cause these things, everybody thinks about it as the plastic bottles and what have you, but fashion is the thing that in this consumption society that is rapidly accelerating, because we're, our consuming power is 10 times of what our parents were. We're buying more things because we see things as disposable. So we see a better way, and we see a better now. And the way is, well, what if we owned less things that we love more? What if we actually own things that were built not to deconstruct and fall apart, because they are many things in fashion, because that means you're going to need to buy it again, but it's built to last. What happens if we can buy things that feel more like a uniform as opposed to an ego? Like one of my favorite expressions is, we go over ego. What if we can wear things on our body that remind us that we are nature? And then what if we looked at the term, and I will ask you the question. You live and breathe in this world. You're writing this beautiful book around this well point in the world. If I asked you, and if I asked all your viewers, took them in a separate room, and I said, "What is sustainability? What does that mean?" What does it mean to you? What is sustainability?
Yeah, well, sustainability is something that's not based. Yeah, I'll define it in terms of a negative. It's something that isn't self-terminating, right?
Okay.
So, like most, like we don't like we need the word because we live in a world that's self-terminating. Like it may be happening slowly, and there may be people who are, so ego invested in progress and science that they can't see that it's dying. Like, like the metaphor that I got from I think it was the Ishmael book about like the plane is plummeting to the ground, but only the people in the very front can see that the ground, and everyone else is like, "Hey, this is great. We're on a plane." Right? So for sustainability is simply like it's not even excellent. It's just like we can keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You I love that you said it like that. It's like it's almost like an absence of a negative instead of existence of a positive, and it's very interesting. It's like it would be like if you sent your kids to school and you said, your goal is to go get a C average. Go get them, kid. Let's focus on maintainability because that's what sustainability really is. Well, the truth of the matter is that maintainability is not going to get us home. It's not going to improve our lives. And so, even I mean, we talk about like the United Nations has the global sustainability goals. Well, I think we've had it wrong all along. Let's presence what are the global regenerative goals? And so
how do you define regenerative compared to sustainable?
So sustainable, in the world of the mind that I live in, sustainably sourced is beautifully. Let's use sustainably sourced things that will actually go back to where it came from. So you can call that circular systems. Some industries call that. But it gets really interesting when you say, when we say, well, how do we mark and we measure? Can we put a KPI against sustainability? You can't. It's almost so nebulous. What we can do is we can go beyond sustainably sourced models. So sustainability, if you think of it as sustainably sourced materials, but if we focus on regeneration, which is how can we use business as a collective force for social good? How can we actually give back more than it takes to make? Because with the population increasing in this world, we are going to continue to acquire more things, do more things. And so if we can use business as that collective engine, now it gets interesting. So for example, just to get very simple and pragmatic, we source our material from it's regenerative beech trees. Beech trees you've probably heard of bamboo, eucalyptus. They can be turned into fabric and fiber. Well, in many humble opinions, beech is the highest grade of that because it's not clingy to your skin and it's a fast-growing tree that regrows on its own. So the tree in itself regenerates. And so you're innovating with nature to connect your inner nature and then a model of regeneration. So from one beech tree, we can make at least 108 of these. For every one of these, we plant a tree.
And say what these are for people who are just listening.
So we make a suite of clothes called One Golden Thread, and it's everything from nature wraps to tree shirts to tree pants to dusters. We're coming out with bedding. I mean, just things that when you have it on your skin, it feels like a second skin. It feels like you're naked in nature. We're certainly not the only ones that are working with these materials, but this is where the industry is going. This is where the world is going. Now, it's about investing in self because the race to the bottom of fast fashion has also got to stop. Because what is the true cost of fashion is not just the cost, the price you pay, but it's the people that were the women that were enslaved or the children that were enslaved to make these clothes in third world countries. We are cutting and sewing with a women-owned, minority-led love shops in LA. We pay not minimum wage; we pay benevolent wage. So it's not just about the materials it's also about the the humanness of it. But just to get back to this idea about regeneration, of giving back more than it takes to make. From one beech tree, we can make 108 of these, which are nature wraps. And then for every one of these, we plant a tree for every item sold. And so at impact, you're talking about a 1-to-108x. From one tree, we can make 108 more. Now, this is not a new concept. I mean, regenerative systems is a very powerful thing that we can all be looking at. But I believe that if we each look at our businesses and saying, how can we actually give back more than it takes to make, then it's not just like the absence of a negative. It truly is the existence of a positive.
So when I think about sort of life in general, and I'm no biologist and I'm no scientist, and I'm just trying to make sense of it, it seems to me that any organism that takes more than it gives from the environment is either going to go extinct or create the environment it's in to go extinct. And I don't think there's been a sustainable organism on the planet that has managed to overturn that equation. And the fact that we have been doing it for, I don't know how, whether you want to say hundreds of years or thousands of years, doesn't mean that we've overturned the laws of nature. It just means the plane is taking a long time to hit the ground.
Unquestionably. And listen, it's hard to have these conversations when you walk outside and the sky is blue and, everything's great in the world and you hear, the sky's falling and climate change and what have you. And I have to tell you something, we started by really being this pulpit of sharing this information. And it was like crickets, because it's hard for people to wrap around their arms around something so big. And frankly, when their lives are, when we are, the human nature or the human condition is, we as humanity, we are selfish creatures, and that's okay. So look, the most powerful thing that I think I've learned about benevolent business or any kind of business where you're trying to do something, powerful in the world is I learned from my father and my dog when I was in second grade. My dog's name was Sam. And Sam had some worms, as it were, right? And we had to give Sam a pill. And my dad takes me to his bowl, and he says, "Okay, we've got to give Sam this pill. How do you think we do it?" And I said, "Well, we'll hide it in his food." And my dad said, "Well, that's a great idea, but you know what? Dogs are smart, and they'll sense something and they'll spit it out." And I said, "Well." My dad says, "No, you wrap it in something sweet. Wrap it in something sweet, and even if it's a pill the dog needs to swallow, it'll be a beautiful thing to receive." And that's what we're doing. We're wrapping a big pill of an extractive, polluting industry in something that is just delicious. And that has how our business has actually expanded, grown. It's why we've just very honored yesterday received our first pre-seed round of outside investment. I've bootstrapped invested this as a for benefit up until now. And it's because we're wrapping in something sweet. The message is behind it. The intentionality of the model is what drives it. And yet what we're doing is we're saying, hey, invest in something that reminds you that life is golden. And when you put something on your body that you can own less things you love more, that reminds you of what you feel like inside. That's a beautiful message and meaning.
That reminds me of a few things. I love your homage to Sam, who's presumably not still incarnate, but still doing good work in the world. First it reminds me of how the sort of plant-based / vegan movement has evolved from like pouring red paint on people wearing fur coats to creating delicious meals and, foods that people actually want, right? Rather than just preaching to us about how bad we are for consuming animal products.
I can't agree with you more. It's a powerful thing when innovation can catch up with passion. And, I think about like, these Beyond Burgers or what have you, that it's these gorgeous things and you eat it and a meat eater would say like, this is one of the best burgers I've ever had. And they're like, well, that's actually not meat.
Yeah.
And it invites somebody into um, an awake call, right? It's an wake up call. You're just kind of like, oh, wait, there's a different way, because we are, we are creatures of habit until somebody presents an easy on ramp for self enroll, and that's what I think we are all doing. Any of your listeners that are on this is because they are either creating those easy on ramps for self enroll, or they are intrigued with the opportunities to reveal an emergent version of themselves.
Okay. I want to come back to that phrase, easy on-ramp for self-enroll, because I don't understand it. But I just want to say the other thing it reminds me of is there was a TED Talk I enjoyed. It was probably 10 years old at this point, by a British marketing executive named Rory Sutherland, who was talking about what we need to do as marketers is to sell more delight and less stuff. Right. And the example he used was how I forget, it was the British or the French spent billions of dollars over 10 years to speed up the train that goes, the Channel train from wherever, Orleans to London. And so, like, just so people could get there an hour faster. So it was like 4-hour trip instead of 5-hour trip. They said, if you had given me like a tiny percentage of that money, I would have hired supermodels, beautiful men and women, to walk up and down giving away free alcohol. And then people would get there and go, God, that train went too fast.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. It's it's a great metaphor that you bring up about speed, because we're in this instant gratification. It's even like fast fashion, whatever. It's get fast food. It's everything. The likes, the nanosecond around social media. Even how fast somebody can be gaslighted online. I mean, it's just we're in this micro nanosecond culture, and I think this idea like slowing down. So when I talk about easy on ramps for self-enroll, what does that mean? What if we can give people an opportunity to let go of the feeling around compromise? That if I want something as it relates to, let's say, clothing, if I want something eco, it's not going to be stylish. Or if I want something stylish, it's going to somehow be extractive. Or if I want something of this, it's going to be something that is only seasonal. We believe in owning less things to love more. We believe in when something hits your body, that you look at yourself and it's like there's something's going on. And there's 500 5-star crazy reviews on our website that literally, like, am I allowed to speak French on your?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I mean that you can't write this shit. I mean, you could not write this shit. You look at what the way people are expressing, and they're talking about like, I feel like myself. I see myself, and so this idea of easy on ramps for self-enroll is we're living in a compromise-free society now. We can have the vegan and we can still have the delicious thing that tastes like meat. Mm-hmm. We can wear clothes that allow us to feel embodied, that are also eco. Now, there's a cost associated with it, but the true cost is what is the cost of if we don't take these steps. Because the true cost is the fact that we're going to be wearing masks 20 years from now for a very different reason. Because we're going to be checking the plastic reading in terms of the clouds, because we've let all the tires and the plastic bottles and the clothes pollute our oceans, and therefore we're not able to eat the seafood anymore. We're not able to enjoy even swimming in the ocean anymore. And we need to check the plastic readings. I mean, this is a real. But what if we can literally let go of all that and simply come into thoughts, words, integrity to be stacked, and to literally do nothing more than wear what you love. Do nothing more than eat what you love. And we can do those things from a new place, because there are innovation companies out there doing things in food, fashion, I mean, even music. I mean, just everything is coming together in really a renaissance. And that to me is something that, look, I don't, I'm not a revisionist historyist, so it's hard for me to say, like, do I wish that the pandemic didn't happen? I don't like to think in those terms, but what I do like to see is the blessing of all this, of how we've come from this, of how this was an opportunity for us to reset, and for us to maybe release some stuck stories, and for us to maybe reveal who we are anew.
Yeah, I love that. And it's actually I have a book just out called, it's basically a book on coaching and influence and how to help the people around you change. And we have a model, which is when we look at the problem, the first thing we do is look at the outcome we want. And then look at how is the problem an opportunity to get to that outcome. So it sounds like exactly what you're describing. So the pandemic, probably nobody would have been like, yes, let's do that. But once it's there, where's the opportunity to get to the world that we want to build?
We can either be problemists, or we can be solutionists. Look, I think that there's beauty in like activism, of course. Those that want to shed light on the problem. I love the term proactivism. How are we all proactivists? And that's simply seeing a problem as an opportunity. Change the language, change the game. And it's a beautiful well start for all of us.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about the idea of owning less, loving more. So there's been a bunch of things. So like I do podcasting and broadcast. So, I needed a camera of certain quality. So I started looking at cameras, and now I'm like, oh, look at all these beautiful cameras. And then I get the camera and I'm like, oh, like there's a new video about a new lens for the camera. And there's a way in which whatever I get just juices me for the next thing that's going to be coming down the line, next year's model or an extension or a new miking system. And I can feel like the having, I get the box. I'm really excited about it. I play with it. And like the half-life of that satisfaction is tiny, is really, really short. You have a guitar behind you. We talked about it before we started recording. I got my guitar. It was a Martin D16H in 1993. And that has given me nothing but pleasure ever since. And it's like, there are just a few things in my life. Like once I get them, it's like the relationship with them is what grows as opposed to the need to transcend them with the next thing. And I'm wondering help me think about that. Like, was it the guitar? Like if I'd gotten a Taylor with a big plastic backing, would that have been the same thing? Like what makes a relationship with an object an own less, love more relationship versus an own more, want more relationship?
There's so much to unpack on that, but two things come to mind. The Marie Kondo, the Japanese philosophy, like hold it in your hand if it sparks joy. It's intended to keep. And that guitar that you speak about, clearly, it's an expression of you because it's an extension of you. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, I just think about around self-awareness. It's fascinating, and perhaps many of your listeners are aware of this incredible documentary called "The Century of Self."
Huh.
And I'll just quickly recap because it's fascinating. We are celebrating next year, 2022. The 100-year anniversary of the Century of Self. Now, if you rewind the clock 100 years, Herbert Hoover was the president, the economy was in the shitter, and he didn't know how to get it going, and so he hired this young upstart by the name of Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And Bernays was playing on all of Sigmund Freud's things about ego, id, desire, ego, and came up with the whole really the birth of PR that was birthed in 22. And it was all the thing around like, if you want to feel fulfilled by the house, if you want, get the girl by getting the Cadillac. I mean, this is what the things that birthed along the way. Even the women's movement, the freedom sticks, Virginia Slims, right?
Yeah.
And so it became this whole story, and it just catapulted us into this century of self around consumption unconsciously. And then everything just, accelerated with television. It accelerated with the internet. It accelerated with, all things. And so we've been on this path, and this is an opportunity to come back into this moment. And again, that's why I'm referencing like the twisted gift of the pandemic. It's like, we're not out to impress anybody anymore. Like it's not about look at me. It's more like see right to me. And so I love this idea around like owning, like what do we actually see that if our house was, God forbid, on fire, that you would grab on the way out because it means that much to you. Those are those things. And it's, it's an honor just to hear from those who say like, these clothes are a part of me, and it's not an ego thing. It's literally just like, it just feels like that. And so your guitar, maybe that book behind you that says play. I mean, whatever it is in your life that is magical, that brings you deeper into who you are today. Not the past story, not the things that we're holding on to that create a memory, but really like who are we today? And I think that that's a beautiful opportunity for us to consistently, let go of our shell or obliterate our shell and come back into the coherence of who we wish to be.
Yeah, and actually, that's the play is a canvas that my daughter painted for me, so it's got extra meaning.
She painted that.
Yeah, so definitely something I would grab.
That is gorgeous.
Oh, thanks.
That's amazing.
I'll let her know.
Well, we do art collaborations, and we print with eco print on large nature wraps, which is all about tree fiber. That would be a fun one to play with.
I will tell you, if she could work with you guys on putting her art onto your, like, she would be the happiest human on the planet.
Well, you heard it here first, your listeners, and we could plant a lot of trees, and we could play while we're doing it. So let's have some fun.
I love it. So you mentioned you just got a round of funding, and you said you're like a benefit corp. I assume it was like the B Corp. Is that the technical?
So B Corp is like from B Labs. We're actually a registered public benefit company, which operates in the same capacity. And for those that are not aware of this term, it structurally, I suppose it operates like a C corporation, but what it really means is that social good is at our core, and a give back impact is central to our model.
Gotcha. So I assume you go out and you get a very different set of investors. Like I was involved with a startup, and we had, just sort of the purest motives, it was called WellStart, and we were going to, bring lifestyle medicine to self-insured organizations so they could lower their healthcare costs by helping people get healthy and adopt plant-based diets and just all the good stuff. And as we were looking into getting funded at a certain point, it's like, well, we're going to need money. And the people who are going to give us money are the people who are going to expect a return better than the stock market, or way better than the stock market, given the risk. And I'm wondering how another one of those little voices in my head that's so cynical is like, I hear about a company that wants to change the world, and yet they're doing it through venture capital. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, it is. I think for any business, bringing outside capital is it's a calculated risk, and so you need to. We've been very vigilant that it's not about the money; it's about the energy. And any money that we would ever bring in, it would be people that are committed to helping others and creating a healthier community and planet. And so, I think that if you think of it like a totem, it's purpose, people, profits. And even within the profits, it's how can we use profits to be, certainly to give a return, but also to be a profit for the planet. And so, I'm truly honored. It's going to be interesting though, as we grow, and perhaps we look at a larger round and go to more of an institutional. We may never do institutional money for that very reason, because institutional often looks at it through profit, and oh, by the way, sure, there's a purpose, but it's got to be profit first. What I would say though, that is extraordinary as well, that's happening in terms of the Ark, is there are incredibly wealthy people who want to put their money to powerful use. And there are also incredible investment consortiums that wish to do good in the world. For instance, there's a incredible company that's focused. It's Replant Capital, for instance, and they're all focused on regenerative business models. So it takes patience and prudency to know who you are, and to ensure that you are aligning values as well as purpose.
Gotcha. So I have a lot more philosophical questions, and I'm feeling the urge to let people bite the Beyond Burger. Let's talk about, I don't know anything about clothes or fashion. I mean, I wear them. I probably have all wonderful Patagonia microfiber stuff that's destroying the earth. But let's talk about one golden thread. You said you're the designer and the founder. Tell us about fashion. Tell us about this, your vision and the clothes you make, and delight us.
Well, I'd be happy to. And I would also, since you wish to go philosophical, I would be honored to share with you also that this did not set out to be a clothing company. I mean, there was no thought that this was a clothing company. One golden thread was, it was really a parallel of my own personal journey of letting go of my own stuck stories, and my own very unempathetic living towards myself. I grew up empathetic to, frankly, everyone's journey but my own. I was the amplifier for other people's journey and visions as I grew into an adult, but my own.
And in what capacity?
Just a serial entrepreneur. I did some things did a high-end second home club, did some things on the internet. I had a white label fashion house for bands and brands, and it was always other people's ideas, and I was sort of the revenue monkey. I was the business head. I was the marketing, the storyteller. But just very quick background on me is that I was getting sick, really sick, as an adult. And in my 40s, I had walking pneumonia 3 times in 7 years, and it would always start in my throat chakra, and drop into my lungs, and then completely incapacitated. And I took a workshop that forever changed my life, and it was called Claiming Your Voice. Because I realized, we all have this gift to share. And so I started being honored to be in the company of people like you and your listeners who have wisdom and things to share. And I was really receiving it. And I was receiving it in my own experience. And I was reframing things and revealing who I was. And it all poured out onto pages in 2014. I'll share something deeply personal. I don't typically share, but it was the first time that I did plant medicine, and it was a buffer day after that, and I'm in Vermont, and I'm staring at these white pieces of paper, trying to write my thoughts, and nothing was coming, and then all of a sudden it just flowed out. And what flowed out was something like I'd never written before. It was like all the reframes and reveals and and it flowed. I mean, poetry is very precious, and it's what the prose do, but it was very floetic. It had a flowetry to it. And it became my Life 2.0 Humanifesto. And I buried it for a year because I shared it with nobody because it was too much to share and what have you, and too deep. And then a friend of mine was going through a really tough journey. And she said something that spoke to one of the things in what I'd written. And I said, look, I wrote this thing. It's really personal. It's super raw. I was sweating saying it because I'd never shared something so personal of myself. And I said, but I feel like this maybe will help you. And I shared it with her, and she looked at me as you're looking at me, with kind of expressionless, and everything in my body around lack of worthiness, who am I to share, came up, and I was about to apologize. I would just say, I'm so sorry. I shared that. I shouldn't have shared that.
Uh-huh.
And as I took the deep breath to say, I'm sorry, she said, thank you. She said, I don't know what just happened, but you gave me a different way to think about what I'm going through. Thank you. You should share this. And I immediately changed the subject. And then a month later, my life forever changed in 33 words. 33 words. I was in New York at a art gallery opening for Danny Clinch, super cool rock and roll exhibit. Everybody around the place is, incredibly accomplished, and just amazed to be in the room. And this gentleman turns towards me and asks me a question, South African, and I said, well, what kind of beautiful magic are you up to in the world? And he says, well, I've actually kind of come from a dark place, but I'm actually igniting. And I said, did you just say igniting? He said, yeah, I said igniting. And I said, well, listen, it's so funny. I wrote this thing, and it's got a 3-part story of intention, integration, and ignition. And he says, well, I'd like to hear it. And I said, well, it's not really something you share. And this, and the sweat was coming inside my body again, like, oh my God, what did I just walk myself into? And he says, no, I want to hear it now. And I'm like, no turning back. And I shared it with him, and he looks at me motionless, and it all came up again. I was about to say, nice to meet you, I got to go. And he said, hold on, mate, what are you going to do with this? And I said, nothing. And he said, no, I'm asking you, what are you going to do with this? I said, who am I to share? I'm just Jeff. And he looked at me, and in these 33 words, forever sent me to my true north. Let me tell you something. We're on this planet for 3 reasons: to learn, to love, and to share. And if you're not sharing your gifts, you're being selfish. Quit being so fucking selfish. He poked me in the chest. He turned and walked away. I never got his name. And in that moment, it all became clear to me that if you have a gift to share, it's not being narcissistic, egoic, or selfish to share it. It's actually inviting somebody else deeper into their own journey. And that's what sent me. And I didn't know what I was doing. I walked away from a company that I was misaligned with, that I co-founded. I knew that it was something about reminding ourselves that we're golden inside. And I started getting invited places around the world. And I went to Berlin. A beautiful artist was creating an exhibit there called Faux Real, Olivia Steele. And she invited me to share the Humanifesto. And I brought golden threads with me. And that's what sent me on the journey. And that's how One Golden Thread started. I've tied tens of thousands of golden threads on people's wrists, inviting them into a blessing of reminding them that they're golden inside. And then I realized that it started with a golden thread, and it still does. There's a golden thread that weaves through every article of clothing. And there's such a storyline of that it's all about connection to self, connection to community, and connection to the planet. And, the blessing is that the intentionality, the purpose, the desire to do right by the world, in the world, for the world, as the world, has continued in terms of the supply chain. It's continued in terms of the way that we've created things, where we care for those that are making it. It's in the fact that there's no plastic packaging that ever touches the clothes when it's shipped. We ship an eco-enclosed mailers, and of course, every article of clothing also comes wrapped with a golden thread for you to tie on your wrist, or somebody you love, to remind them that they are also golden inside. So look, some people may be watching this and saying, well, this is too woo-woo guru for this is the opposite. This is just the heart of the arc of the fact that we're all having a human, the human condition is scarcity, it's ego, it's fear. The human experience is love and generosity and kindness. And the human experiment is what we get to play. in the middle of that. And so we're honored to be, enjoying the play. And this is all supposed to be fun. So let's have some.
Wow, what a beautiful story. It's it kind of reminds me of the Bible story of Jonah, right? Who gets called to share a message and keeps refusing, and ends up in a pretty deep place, until finally accepting the mantle.
I'll share something with you. Is that my mother was the most prolific artist that I have ever known, and her art was all about nature and us as one. This is my mother. Well, this is my mother.
Mm.
Let's see if you can see that. And then this is a piece of her art. You can see that.
Wow.
The golden threads.
Uh-huh.
So this has been in my DNA, this idea of like, well, we are nature, so let's connect to nature. And so, truly full circle, my relationship with my mother deepened in such a heart level during her deep Alzheimer's journey. That is a disease, mental illness that's going to touch so many of us in our lives. And 2 days before COVID got real, I had the noble honor of holding my mother's chest as she took her last breath, and to be there with her. I feel like that there was a part of me that was really birthed in that moment, to really step, deeper into my legacy as a designer, my legacy as an artist, and to come from a place of love and connection. I'll share, something really beautiful with you. Is that when my mother passed, I wanted to create something in her memory, and quite frankly, we were dead in the water. We had $3,000 in sales that month, and I didn't know how I was going to possibly keep the lights on, pay anybody, that was working on one golden thread. And I created something in memory of my mother, because there was all the pandemic was starting, and nobody can get face masks because everything was sold out. And I was reading stories about how the homeless could not even go into a food bank because they didn't have a face covering. So they couldn't even get shelter. They couldn't even get any nourishment. And so I wanted to create something that was also going to eradicate all the mountains of plastic, of all the single-use plastic masks that there's Mount Everest sizes. Don't even get me started about the disposable masks. And this is tree fiber. And we created a face wrap. And for every one of these sold, we donated one to a homeless soul in memory of my mother that month. And that's actually the way One Golden Thread, you started with a benevolent act. And what happened was people said, wow, I want to feel this not just on my face, but I want to feel this all over my body. And all of a sudden people were buying clothes online that I didn't even know who they were, because I was just selling to friends at that point.
Huh.
And that's really what sent us on this journey. And it's an amazing rememory that we can start with one benevolent act, take one step forward, and that step can lead to something beautiful.
Yeah, the other thing I'm hearing in your story is that there was part of you that had to die, right? And I'm thinking like, you're this, the money monkey, you're the mover and shaker, you can do the internet, you can, you're the guy who walks into the room and everybody else has to prove themselves to you because there's a million people with visions and voices and you're going to choose which ones make it. And then to become like so first of all humble, but at the same time like infinite. Like I have, like what I have within me is worth sharing. And I'm not going to, like, I'm imagining a lot of your life was sort of evaluating like who's worthwhile, who's not worthwhile. And then being, over the course of the year or so after your vision to say, I'm going to drop the evaluative mind. That must have been like dropping to some degree, like who you thought you were.
Yeah, identity. We white knuckle clutch our identity. I know I did, and and for what? And one of my favorite human beings, her name is Viet Simkin, and she She's a meditation teacher, and everyone should look her up. She's fantastic. And
What's the name?
Biet Simkin, Biet. She spoke about the identity as a shell, and we clutch it, we hide within it, we need it for protection, and as we grow, maybe we press up against that shell. When we press up against that shell, all of a sudden we feel either blame or shame that we're bigger than the shell or what have you, or we've got to remain in the shell. And all of a sudden that shell becomes not a home that we thought it was. It becomes like almost a point of discomfort. It becomes a place of dis-ease. And so there's only one way to do it. It's to obliterate the shell. Just obliterate it. Visualize it just breaking up into fractals, an infinite number of fractals, to realize that you are the universe, that you are boundless. And to do it in a way where, words, my mother was the punniest person I know. My father was very precise with his words. So I believe words cast spells, and we can choose our spellings wisely. And there's something so beautiful in this notion around, our inner ego can be our quiet hero. So even like this thing around your identity, it's like if the identity is from within, what's the current master of your why? Maybe it's this time, maybe it's another time, but I'd be honored to share with you, some of the reframes and reveals that came from the Humanifesto, because I think it would be, we're touching on so many of these things around shedding, but I'll certainly follow your lead of where we want to take this. Sure.
I just wanted to kind of make sure that I get people, one of the outcomes is I want, your cash register to ring. I want people to get your clothes, but, I would love to hear some of those reframes.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, if anybody wishes to feel the feeling of this, it'd be an honor to have you join Regeneration. We'll be planting a tree in your name. I mean, you could say like, join Regeneration, plant a tree, and oh, by the way, get the most cozy clothes you've ever enjoyed. And of course, we actually have a physical location in LA. We have an atelier, which is where we are right now.
Okay.
We have a pop-up spot in Miami for any listeners that are in either Miami or LA. And then onegoldenthread.com is the way to find us online, and that's goldenthread.com. And we could even create, if you'd like, a little special gift code for your community. That would be.
Ooh, I like being special. What do they get?
Well, what we first would do is we would create a code. So we'd be planting those number of trees for every item purchased from your community in the name of your community. So that's cool. And that's number one. Number two is they would be getting, with this special code, 11% special pricing off as a gift by purchase. And so, and we probably throw in a Versa wrap as well.
Oh, all right. I'm as long as you can do that regeneratively, I'm all for it.
Listen, or they can pick up the play nature wrap. So. Yeah, I mean, I'd be more than happy to, show some of the other items if you'd like to see a few other items, because there are some special pieces. But, I think that what you're given, I appreciate your philosophical, approach to business and life. I mean, and it starts with values, right? So, our values were born from this notion around self-love ignites a shared love for both community as well as planet. And so, yeah, I mean, it's if you'd like to receive the Humanifesto, it's 4 minutes and 44 seconds, and we can roll through that, or we can speak about something else first, whatever feels good.
You know what I'm thinking? I think I've got about 5 minutes before I want to take a break because I have another call later. Can I get you back on a second time?
That's even better.
So we're gonna tease the manifesto. So my listeners will have to come back to hear part 2. Let's. That feels good because 4 minutes and then I'm sure a lifetime to unpack. Just right now, tell us, like, what, if people go to the website, like, what can get, like, I'm a dude. I spill food on my clothes. I garden and rip. Like, what is there for me? What's there for different, market segments?
All right. So first of all, just starting with the basics. I mean, like a recapitulated men's T-shirt that's also all the clothes are unisexy. So what I designed for me, this is the way it started. The world's perfect tee. So I wanted something with arm hugging sleeves, something that wasn't like a Will Ferrell half shirt, something that's more elongating. This is all raw edge, just like life. And so it, of course, it's got a golden thread.
You know what? I need you a little closer to the microphone, because in fact, I can put up pictures, but like 99% of the listeners will listen rather than watch. So I'd rather privilege the audio.
Got it. Cool. So yeah, we'll put some pictures up. I mean, we could even send you some pictures, but the point is that it's head to toe. We've got tree pants, tree shirts, dusters, which become something you just want to live in. We've got long sleeve raglans that are, we've got a Henley coming out. We've got these nature wraps that become like an adult woogie blanket that you just take with you everywhere. It becomes a scarf. It becomes a place to cuddle up with you and your love. And we've got these Versa wraps. And then we even have things in the atelier in terms of like tree fiber glasses. There's so much innovation that's happening. So things that we're creating and we're also curating. I'll share with you one thing that is the newest thing we've come out with, which is this looks like just a candle, right?
Right.
Well, this is also the most delicious massage oil. So this is a warm coconut, non-GMO soy coconut candle that at the end of it, these are handcrafted in India. These become the most amazing drinking vessels for your water, for your wine, what have you. So we believe in even something like a candle. In the past, it would be something you'd throw away. Now it's like something that has a second life for massage, and has an afterlife as a drinking vessel. We love continuing to innovate and just think about where can we take things that approach life as own less things you love more, that are durable, that are soft, that are breathable, antimicrobial, and as it relates to things like a candle, that have a continued life beyond its first form and function.
Wow. I'll tell you where my mind is going with this. I'm fantasizing about like everything in my closet. The things I love are like falling apart because I've been wearing, because I love them and I wear them for years and years. There's the stuff that I get to replace it with that, I could care less about. There's way too much. I'm fantasizing about like having like 2 or 3 pieces of clothing that are, as you said, like my uniform, that I could wear all the time, feel incredible in, and go backpacking the world.
Yeah. And this is, I'm happy you brought it up like that, because, what if we can look at life as we're all travelers, and that whether you're traveling from the bedroom to the couch or around the world, that you can have things that literally you can dress up, dress down, that you can exercise in, that you can live in, that you can sleep in, that you can rock out the next day in. And that's one of the things that I'm most honored to see, the comments of the way people are enjoying these clothes, is that these are threads that literally you can do everything in. And so, this is streetwear, beachwear, sleepwear, and lifewear. And so it's a cool thing what you're saying, which is like, if you're traveling the world, which we all are, wherever
right.
What if we can own less things that we love more, that remind us that the world is as golden as we feel inside?
I love it. Hey, just curious, do you know my friends Michael and Bianca Alexander?
I do not.
Oh, I got to introduce you. They have a show on PBS called Conscious Living.
Oh, wow.
They last year went to Berlin for the I guess it was the fast fashion protest around, like, do you know who makes your clothes?
Right.
And they travel around and they, highlight people on their show. I think you'd be a fantastic segment for them. So I'll introduce you.
I'd be honored. Yeah. And for us, I mean, this is for those that are actually looking. This is actually was the first thing that we did create before there was clothes. It's a reminder. This is the 108. So it's a reminder that if you want anything that's infinite in the world or unity of community, it all starts with yourself. And the moment it starts with you, everything moves.
Gotcha. And 108 is a sacred geometry number, right?
It is. It's the number that really is references the interconnectedness of all things and beings in the universe. If there's a like a spirit animal for one golden thread, it would be Thich Nhat Hanh, who coined the term interbeing, which is all about that. All these things are interconnected, and that's what the 108 references. And it's fascinating. Like if you Google 108, the synchronicity of the way it shows up in astronomy, it shows up in our body, it even shows up in popular culture. Do you know there's 108 stitches in a baseball?
I must admit to never having counted.
Neither have I. But Google seems to have.
All right, and baseball is life. So there you go. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. So we'll connect offline to get that code. So I'll include it in the intro and outro, so people will have heard it and we'll hear it again. And This put it in the show notes for today's episode. But wow, what an honor, and how I feel like we've been in this hour. Just it's been such an honor just to getting to know your spirit.
Well, likewise, it's been an honor to share with you and your listeners, and thank you for the incredible container that you're creating for the world to thrive.
All right. Well, blessings. I can't wait. Now that I understand, I can't wait to open the browser with my wife and have her tell me what I'm going to look good in.
I would actually love to. I would actually love to have another thing I'd love to do for you and any of your viewers. If I'm in the atelier, is we do virtual kind of like fittings where I could try some things on and suggest some things, because I can size people up pretty well in terms of what might strike their golden fancy.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we'll take you up on that. And I'll also tell my daughter you liked her painting. So. Very
much so. And I sincerely, that would be a fun 2022 project. To create an oversized nature wrap all around play.
All right. As soon as we get off, the Zoom call, I'm going to call her and let her know.
How old is she now?
25.
Oh my God. And how old was she when she made that?
I want to say 17, 18. And she made it for me because I needed it. She also, I don't think I have it up now, but she also did a hand-painted sign on wood that says "Chill, bruh." Because
she made that for you because I'm getting chills now. She made that for you because she thought you needed that.
I needed to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So you had Sam and your dad. I have my kids telling me what I need to hear.
I love it. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. Thank you for giving me permission to share my story, and this is what we're all here for. And look forward to seeing you down the road. And for any of your listeners, look forward to getting you as part of One Golden Thread.
Right on, and I'm real excited to have part 2 and to talk about the Humanifesto.
Honor anytime.
Awesome. Take care, Jeff.
All right, blessings.
All right, I'm going to make a little pun here and say that's a wrap, because get it, they sell wraps. You can find the show notes for today's episode at plantyourself.com/495. Got links to that meditation teacher, Beat Simkin, that he talked about, and she's awfully interesting. I did spend a fair amount of time procrastinating this recording by watching some of her videos. Very, very cool stuff. And what else is going on? I actually ran yesterday morning. I wanted to do a morning meditation walk out there early in the day. I did say walk. I did a meditation walk early in the day just to get the sun in my face. I've been having some trouble with staying asleep at night, so I took a page from the Huberman Lab podcast and got early morning sun. And just as I was halfway through my meditation walk, up runs Eamon, one of my running buddies who I haven't seen in a long time. Running bunnies? Good God. Running buddies. Running buddy. Oh, dear. He's not running either. A running buddy. And I told him, my knee's still cranked. And then I looked at him and just thought, boy, it'd be fun to have a nice long run conversation with him. So we ran 4 miles. And I felt pretty good at the end of it. So I ended up not my weights workout yesterday. I did it today instead. And feeling pretty good. And in garden news, is there any? No, not really. I decided next year we're going to grow collards in the fall and winter. I found out that they actually are hardy down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas the kale, by the time it gets to the mid-20s, it's pretty touch and go. So that's about it for garden news. Feeling pretty good in the body. Signed up. Omicron and COVID willing for a Ultimate Frisbee tournament in New Orleans in April, I think second weekend in April. So if everything works out, I'll go see Josh and maybe he can come watch me play and get converted to an Ultimate Frisbee player. All right, that's about it. Let's talk about thanks. All right, time for thanks. Thanks to Will Ridenauer for allowing me to use his beautiful song Sabali Dawn, The Dance of Peace. You can find more of Will's music at his website, willridenauer.com. And of course, thanks to all of you Plant Yourself podcast patrons. Kim Harrison, Lynn McClellan, Brittany Porter, Dominic Maurer, Barbara Whitney, Tammy Black, Amy Good, Amanda Hatherley, Mary Jane Wheeler, Ellen Kennelly, Melissa Cobb, Rachel Behrens, Tina Scharf, Tina Ahern, Jen Filikanovsky, David Bizek, The Mysterious Michelle X, Elsbeth Feldman, Leah Stoller, Alan Christensen, Colleen Peck, Michelle Landry, Josina, Sarah Durkis, Kelly Cameron, Janet Selby, Claire Adams, Tom Franzek, Jeanette Bennett, Gila Sert, David Donahue, Blair Cyber, Dorona Vizov, Gio and Carolyn Argentati, Jody Friesner, Misha Rosen, Michael Warbeck, Aviva Lael, Alicia Lemus, Val Linneman, Nick Harper, Bandana Charlie, Molly Levine, The Inscrutable Harry R., Susan Laverty, The Panda Vegan, Craig Kovic, Adam Scharf, Karen Burry, Heather Morgan, Nigel Davies, Marion Blum, Teresa Koppel, Julian Watkins, Breed O'Connell, Sharon Hirschman, Linda Ayat, Holm Hedegaard, Isa Tuzinwa, Connie Hainline, Aaron Greer, Alicia Davis, Heather O'Connor, Carolyn Jensen, Sherry Olakoski of Plant Powered for Health, Karen Smith, Scott Marani, Karen and Joe Crabtree, Kirby Burton, Teresa Carell, Kevin McCauley, Elizabeth Rothschild, Ann Jesse, Cheryl Dwyer, Jenny Hazelton, Peter W. Evans, Dennis Bird, Darby Kelly, Laurie Fenney, Linnea Lundquist, Emily Iconelli, Levy Wallach, Rosamund McAtee, Dan Picorni, Stephen Leenan, Patty DiMartino, Mike and Donna Kartz, Deanne Bishop, Billbury Elf, Marjorie Lewis, Tricia Adams, Nancy Sheldon, Lindsay Bayshore, Gunmarie Hagan, Tracy Gullidge, Laura Heaton, Meg from Mama Says, Stacey Stokes, Ben Savage, Michael Kay, David Hughes, Connie Rogers, Claire England, Sally Robertson, Paranganchi, Amy Daly, Brian Tourville, Mark Jeffrey Johnson, Josie Dempsey, Karen Schmidt, Pamela Hayden, Emily Perryman, Allison Corbett, Richard Stone, Lauren Vaught of Edible Musings, Aaron Hasty, Sean Owen, Sagar Naik, Erica Piedra, Danielle Roberts, Michael Lushton, Sarah Johnson, Catherine Floyd, for your generous support of the podcast. That's it for now. As always, be well, my friends.